Now, moving through, look at several diseases that are currently under investigation with the use of serine. Alzheimer's disease or cognitive decline, Parkinson's and ALS. There's research ongoing right now being funded by NIH. We have schizophrenia and epilepsy, neuropathy. As I mentioned earlier, the pregnant mothers and infants, especially infants with FTT, failure to thrive, as well as diabetics for those with poor blood sugar control, because blood sugar suppresses serine production. So I just showed you can make serine from glucose, you can make serine from glycine, but that is all inhibited by excessive blood sugar. So if you're a diabetic, your ability to get to serine and produce it becomes limited. And this is actually one of the reasons why we think neuropathies can begin to develop in diabetes, but also cognitive decline. If we look at some of the research, specifically, we'll call out some of the things that are being studied here. So you can see here that L-serine and glycine, so the combination of the two, we know that a lack of these things can lead to more oxidative stress, which is basically chemical damage to your cells. Glial dysfunction, so these are specialized cells in the central nervous system that help keep the nervous system clean. Nerve inflammation or neuroinflammation, an overload of calcium influx, which causes excitotoxicity. So when your nerves are firing too much, too rapidly, they're too excited, that can lead to problems, including the death of the cell. The neuron can die. That's apoptosis. And so you get imbalance of brain and extracellular microenvironment. So we need these amino acids, both glycine and serine, to restore neurological diseases. They activate GABA receptors. If you've ever heard of GABA, GABA is a gamma aminobutyric acid, which is what we sometimes refer to as the brakes of the brain. And so GABA is very important. If you're high stress and you find yourself amped, some of you have maybe taken supplemental GABA, GABA, and found that it really relaxes or calms you down. This is one of the reasons why. We'll understand that both glycine and serine help to activate GABA receptors. We know that these amino acids also play a role in calcium channels and in what are called NMDA receptors. And so they have a neuroprotective effect on things that will drive cell death in nerve cells. You can see down here a cellular and modular or a molecular rather effect. They have anti-inflammatory cascade function. So all of these different chemicals that you see listed here can be impacted by serine and glycine. And then they have an anti-apoptotic effect, meaning they prevent cells from prematurely dying or killing themselves. So they affect things like capsase and NRF2, etc. We won't get too much into that chemistry because probably tuning out, a lot of folks tuning out with that stuff. It's too complex. But let's talk about research studies in people. So human studies. So effects of L-serine ingestion on human sleep. This is one of the areas clinically that we oftentimes see serine being extremely effective. Now, this study was done where they were investigating sleep quality, so the ability to fall asleep, which is sleep initiation, as well as how well you can stay asleep, which is sleep maintenance. During the L-serine intake period, were significantly improved compared to placebo. So the ability to fall asleep and stay asleep both improved when giving L-serine in this particular study. And this was done at a dose of 3 grams a day. There are studies, depending on the type of serine, there are studies that show anywhere from 300 milligrams all the way up to 30 grams of serine in humans, the study. So the ranges for, supplementing with serine vary widely depending on what you're talking about. But in this particular study, these findings suggest that intake of L-serine before going to bed may improve human sleep. Now, I'm going to delineate here again. L-serine is the type of serine. So when you're looking at a supplement, you're looking for L-serine. There is another type of supplemental serine that can be taken as well, and that is called phosphatidylserine. L-serine. And this one is being used more so in things like cognitive decline or Alzheimer's, and the dosing is a little bit different. This is being used at doses anywhere ranging from like 300 to 800 milligrams per day, whereas what I just showed you with L-serine was 3,000 milligrams. So you're going to see the two main types of serine you can supplement with are here, phosphatidyl, the other being L-serine. And so a lot of these studies that in humans that I'm going to show you, especially the ones on brain function. So if you struggle with cognitive decline, memory loss, brain fog, attention deficit disorder, you want the phosphatidylserine type. That's your go-to if what you're trying to do is support your brain health. So you can see here the effect of phosphatidylserine on memory and symptoms of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. This was a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial. You can see here they took 36 children from 4 to 14, and they gave them phosphatidylserine supplementation. And what did they find? And in this case, it was 200 milligrams a day, so not a super high dose as an overall whole. They found that phosphatidylserine supplementation resulted in significant improvements in ADHD, as well as short-term auditory memory, as well as inattention differentiation and reverse differentiation, as well as inattention and impulsivity. So improvements in all key aspects around both cognitive decline and ADHD. So phosphatidylserine significantly improved ADHD symptoms and short-term auditory memory in children. Supplementation might be a safe natural nutritional strategy for improving mental performance in young children. Now, how many of you have had, a teacher at school or a doctor tell you they want your child to take Ritalin or Adderall or other stimulants that have tremendous long-term consequential side effects? I mean, we've raised an entire generation of kids in school who couldn't sit in the desk all day, and we've pumped them full of basically methamphetamine by another name, and we've addicted a tremendous part of the population to these medications. And what I just showed you is that very easily taking a natural amino acid can improve these very same symptoms of memory and attention, etc. So if you are on the fence there, you should always start with, in my opinion, something more natural, that has less side effect chronicity. Now, keep in mind too, and if you're getting pressure from a doctor or from school, so if the doctor and schools are pressuring you to put your child on one of these medications to treat ADD, you have to understand that federal funding of money, so always follow the money. Federal funding increases in 2 schools the more kids that they have diagnosed. So the more diagnoses that they can make and get, this is why they push for that diagnosis so hard. They push for the kid to go see the doctor or to go see the psychologist, because they want the diagnosis, because the more kids they have diagnosed with ADHD in the schoolhouse, the more money they get from the federal government. So the school wants more money. And this is also an incentivization here for the pharmaceutical companies to come in, or for the doctors to make that recommendation. But how many of you have ever had a doctor say, instead of saying, hey, let's put you on Adderall or Ritalin, let's maybe try some phosphatidylserine, which is a natural amino acid substituent that you could potentially be deficient in, that has tremendous impact on the way that your brain thinks and behaves.